Ironically, even as Christians celebrated the 2-year anniversary of the Dobbs decision overturning Roe, many Republican leaders were actually advising candidates to back away from that win, to back away from the pro-life stance. In this episode, we talk about why we cannot afford to retreat on the issue of life. Welcome to Speak Up Virginia, equipping you to speak up on the life, family, and freedom issues that matter most to you. From the Family Foundation, I'm your host, Candi Cushman, with our president, Victoria Cobb. Well, welcome everybody. Glad to have you with us for Speak Up Virginia. You know, there's been some big rock, highly emotional moments lately on the issue of life over the last couple of weeks. You know, we celebrated in June the 2-year anniversary of Dobbs, which overturned Roe v. Wade. And I see some stats out there that this has saved at least 32,000 babies' lives and counting. And of course, it was the centerpiece issue of the presidential debate that we talked about last time. But what's striking to me is in the middle of all this, things that we should be celebrating, you've got Republican leaders, a lot of them, pressuring candidates to run away from this issue. And especially when you look at what's happening right now, the arm wrestling going on with the leadership of the Republican National Committee. I mean, they're wrestling over proposals to water down the party's stance on pro-life issue. I don't know why are we seeing this pressure, Victoria? I just want to kind of get your thoughts on this. Why are we seeing this kind of pressure coming out of a win like this, after we overturned almost 50 years of Roe?
Well, because the Democrats don't really have any other issues. So they're making abortion the one and only. And because, truthfully, the polling is not all with us. Not all hearts and minds are where we want it to be. And so there is a reality that says that if they can center on abortion and they can spend all the money framing the issue incorrectly and telling things that are not exactly the reality of women's experiences, then they can sort of continue this deception. And so, and Republicans are not wrong that there are actually issues that they are very strong on, that the population majority agrees with, right? So people know the economy is bad. They know inflation is bad. So they're not wrong to say, we don't want to spend all our time talking about abortion, because we do need to talk about the issues that are actually, if you talk to voters, they are a little bit in front of abortion. So it is like, let's not spend all our time on what is the third, fourth most important issue to voters, and they aren't all with us.
Yeah, or letting them control the narrative on that.
Correct.
Yeah, and keep pulling us into that.
You do want your narrative where you are absolutely the strongest. So I don't have a problem with that. I do have a problem with, are we actually literally changing positions on life? Candidates that have been pro-life say they're pro-life, and all of a sudden I start hearing a lot of flaky, wishy-washy. And I do think voters don't reward flip-flopping. That's always been a thing. We don't want somebody who's not being honest about what they truly believe. So it's kind of, they're trying to counter the fear tactics, but they got to do it well.
Yeah, and as I was commenting to you earlier, I could see if you're coming at this from a purely non-principled, secular perspective, why you might argue, let's just take that platform out so we can just pull in more people. What would your response be to that?
Well, yeah, if you can all of a sudden pretend this isn't actual real lives that you're talking about, if you don't really understand this issue and you don't actually really believe that these are human beings, then sure, just treat it like any other political issue that's just sort of something that can come and go depending on whether it's popular. But the reality is, if you're pro-life, it's because you understand that there's humans that are actually dying at the hands of a lie that's been perpetrated, that women have no hope, that they have no support, that they can't do this any other way, that adoption isn't a great option. I mean,
it is hard to understand how we can't acknowledge that it's human life, because the science does tell us that. So it is getting back to us just wanting to have that convenience as a society. But at some point, if you're the Republican Party, I mean, it's got to be principled, because if you were talking about slavery, you wouldn't be, let's take that out so we can win. I mean, that's where, if you believe it's a life, it's got to stay principled.
Well, and you can't ignore the fact that whether or not specific Republican leaders or specific consultants are truly pro-life, a lot of the base of the Republican Party are evangelical Christians that absolutely, this is a moral issue, this is an accountability to God kind of issue. So they're going to have a hard time. But again, this is on the table with regards to the platform of the Republican Party. This is on the table with individual campaigns and how they're going to address it. This is this is a significant moment that they're in trying to figure this out.
Okay, I can't resist asking you. You know, we talked about the last episode, the debate. There's still fallout going on from that. Given the performance issues, will this give the Republicans more backbone to kind of be bolder on these life issues, you know, or will it just make Democrats, you know, simply more hysterical on the abortion issue? How do you think that might play into this issue?
Well, it's interesting because the debate is almost so clouded by the incompetence of how Biden sounded. I mean, when he answered an abortion question and he pivoted accidentally to immigration, it was like he actually went from what the Democrats think is their strongest issue to actually talking about what the Republicans have as one of the strongest issues. So that is so clouded. It's hard to say what people will take away as with regards to strategy. But I do think, I hope they do see a piece of what Trump said as a model, which is always remind the public of what the other side really wants, which is extremism. So, you know, I'm not going to give Donald Trump an A for his answer there on the whole abortion question, but I am going to say that piece of it where you're going, you know, look, there are states that are allowing this up until the the moment of birth, the 9th month, or even after, and he's pointing at Northam. That's all really important. And I do think that piece of it should be a model for how Republicans continue to talk about this, because the issue isn't going away, and it shouldn't go away because we haven't.
Still wrestling with it.
We haven't solved the problem, which is that women are being told a pack of lies that they can't be a mom and also have a career, that they can't be a mom and also have a future, that they can't get the support that they need.
Yeah, we got to address the lies.
We got to get there.
Okay, so we're going to talk more about why we can't back away from the life issue, some positive reasons why we shouldn't back away from the life issue. But before we get into that, I did want to watch one of these abortion ads because we are going to start getting slammed with this. And I wanted to share one that came out earlier in the year because it kind of helped start the whole thing off. These attack ads that are using fear-mongering to scare women into, you know, trying to think that we have to have radical, you know, support the extremism on abortion. So this is actually one coming out from Gavin Newsom in California, but it's running in places, or did run in places like Alabama. So let's just watch this.
We're almost there. We're gonna make it.
Trump Republicans want to criminalize young Alabama women who travel for reproductive care.
Miss, I'm gonna need you to step out of the vehicle, take a pregnancy test.
Stop them by taking action at righttotravel.org. Campaign for Democracy Group is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Folks, when this came out, we're pretty shocked that a governor of California is trying to influence a state like Alabama. But you have to look at it, and we're post-debate, so this whole discussion about is there going to be anybody but Biden, you have to look at it as Gavin Newsom has been teeing himself up to try to have national impact in case there's anything that happens with the nominee. So he was way ahead of that strategy, but it's very disturbing that he's going into other states and disturbing them and deceiving them. He
is disturbing
well,
things.
all of the above,
stirring
right?
it up.
Yes, and so it is very frustrating. But I think you can look at that ad as a campaign ad for him, whether or not he's got an official office he's running for yet.
Well, how is that ad deceptive at the end of the day? The idea that a police officer is going to stop a woman on the border of a state line.
I don't even know where to start. They are, every single time, they are coming up with the most extreme idea to try to tell people that we need to have abortion all the time everywhere, right? So this idea that you are going to have, and this plays into the whole, they make it sound like there's confusion around emergencies that women have in pregnancy. And we know that for decades, doctors have known when there are emergency situations what to do. That a woman, if she truly has an emergency, a doctor at a hospital is going to handle it. If she's really having a miscarriage, for example, which is, you know, they muddy all these waters. And then they make it sound like there's, you know, state border issues because these terrible states are banning abortion. But the reality is we've now had a long period of time where abortion is not allowed or not allowed at certain weeks in some of these states. And I would argue we have lives as a result.
Yeah. I mean, don't these state laws that are restricting abortion make it clear no one's going after the woman? Isn't that
correct? Correct. There has not been a law yet that makes the woman the person that's going to get prosecuted. They're always about the abortionist in any case. It's always about the facilitation. And a lot of people, you know, want to think through that, and that's really because we've had decades and decades and decades of lies go to women that our state has been a part of, that this is legal, this is okay. You can't immediately say all of a sudden it's illegal, it's not okay, and we're going to hold you accountable, even though we've been part of feeding you these lies with our taxpayer dollars for all these years. So I just, this is going to be a process for women to understand that now they should. Science is clear. We're taking a human life, but it's going to be a process to get there.
Yeah. Sadly, we're only going to see more of this, right? We're going to see more ads like this.
We're going to see a lot of ads. I mean, in Virginia, because we have an election every year since Dobbs, we've seen these campaigns that use abortion. We've seen what some of these ads look like. So we're kind of familiar with how this issue gets used in elections. And, they think they were successful. And I think they're going to just keep doubling down on that. And that's the reality we're going to have to face.
Okay, how about this campaign that was recently announced, combining Planned Parenthood, ACLU, all these abortion groups? It's a plan for $100 million over the next several years, just focusing on abortion.
Well, we saw, if you were watching the presidential debate, Planned Parenthood pops an ad right there during the debate. They've got the money. And I think they're saying, look, we're going to all come together and we're going to be a part of this deception. And, the ACLU we've known as a left-wing player for a long time. And it's just disappointing that, what I'm disappointed is every time Planned Parenthood spends money, all I think is we hand them so much money as taxpayers. Of course, they have all this other money to do political ads because every donation they get, anything that they get, the money they make from abortion that someone pays for is all money supplemented by all this taxpayer funding.
Well, and I think I did see that Planned Parenthood is spending another $40 million just on the canvassing and things like that. So that's on top of this.
Yeah, there's political dollars and there's quote education dollars and there's taxpayer funding isn't literally supposed to fund campaign ads, and it probably doesn't directly do that. But my only point is, if you can get the taxpayers to pay for the lights on and the doors open, then you get to use the money you would ordinarily spend on lights on and doors open, in another manner. So it frustrates me to watch. There's no other political group like that we prop up sort of on the side in that way.
Okay, well, since we know these lies to women and these attempts to prey on their fears are going to continue, I thought it was important today to address the reality of what's happening and also why we can't retreat on this issue. And back to your point, because lives are being saved. So I wanted to get into that with you today. Tell us about some of the good things that have happened since Dobbs.
Yeah, as you mentioned at the beginning, at least 32,000 lives have been saved. There are 24 states that now have laws protecting unborn children at least 15 weeks or earlier. So 24 states, that's almost half of our nation, is at least saying at 15 weeks we've had enough. 20 of them are when a heartbeat can be protected, can be detected. And so that's a pretty big deal. And so I'm excited to see these states aren't just doing this, though. That I think is sort of what the left expected us to do. But what they claim we don't do is that we don't support women. We don't build any resources. But these states that are protecting human life are also doing great things with regards to funding pregnancy centers, funding childcare assistance, extending Medicaid for postpartum moms. In Tennessee, for example, starting in August, they will cover the cost of 100 diapers a month for Medicaid recipients with young babies. So, we're not just saying, they want to say, you only care about the baby in the womb, you don't care about them. That's always the line. And I think, thankfully, these states are saying, no, we're serious. We care about the baby in the womb. We care about the baby once they're born. We care about the mom.
Yeah. Now, another thing I wanted you to address, because I think a lot of people on the ground tend to get discouraged when they hear this constant media refrain. Well, Dobbs didn't do anything because actually abortions have increased since Dobbs. I've seen numbers being thrown out in headlines, 1 million abortions in 2023. So they're kind of propagating this idea that the pro-life advocacy, actually getting involved in the policy, doesn't matter. You're not accomplishing anything. Can you tackle that directly?
Yeah, well, if that were really the case, then they wouldn't be so panicked, right? If it were really the case that the numbers are just going up, what is all the panic about? They're getting what they want anyway. But the reality is these are actual lives. This isn't just numbers. These are real children that would have been born, they would have been aborted in a state that now protects human life, and that mom chose life instead. And so I think that's really important. And so we can't just sort of get lost in what the left wants us to believe. Admittedly, there's a realignment happening. Yes, if you are dead set on getting an abortion in a state that has protections, you're going to either have to change your mind, which is what we hope is happening, because there's now a culture of life building. People forget that what's happening in those states that don't have abortion is a culture of life is being built, which influences people and moms who are thinking about abortion. So it's not as simple as every mom who was thinking about an abortion then is going to get up and go to a state that now has abortion legal if their state doesn't. No, what's happening is we're supporting women. Because abortion is not so readily available, people are thinking more about their sexual decisions. All those things are happening.
Yeah.
Those are good things. So yes, I mean, admittedly, there are struggles with some of us states that are not protecting human life and what that looks like.
Well, I also think you have to remember how the numbers get skewed when you're just looking at the national picture and not the variation among states.
Right, yes.
Tell us about that a little bit. Some of these states.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the fact that Arkansas, their health department reported 0 abortions after they passed a pro-life law. That's pretty incredible.
It's amazing.
I don't think it's, I don't think we can gloss over that. They want us to, but I don't think we should gloss over that. That's a really significant thing. Or Texas, where separate studies have shown that the Texas Heartbeat Act, which took place in 2021, saves more than 1,000 lives every month.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big deal.
Well, I'm going to throw this image up here on the screen. I mean, you can see in states where they have put in these regulations, these restrictions, even banning abortions. I mean, you can see the numbers flatlining down there on the screen. So I think we need, again, I want to reiterate the point. It is about lives. You don't get discouraged that this is just about theoretical politics in the state capitol or at the White House. We're talking about actual lives impacted when we get the right people in office that are going to support life.
That's exactly right. And I think if you also think about too, the other component of this is really understanding that there's also all these pregnancy resource centers around the country, and that those are growing as well. So it's about shrinking abortion and growing support. They're connected. You don't want to do one without
the policy and the hearts on the ground.
Right,
the
one
moms,
without the other. I think that's really significant. In Virginia, there's about roughly 50 pregnancy centers. That's a really good amount of support. And yeah, we want to see more, but it's not like we aren't trying to address in every community. What do we do when women want a different choice? Because we know so many women want a different choice. They don't choose abortion. They feel forced into abortion in many, many cases.
Yeah. And these pregnancy resource clinics that are helping women on the ground, I mean, they're reaching women's hearts one by one, helping them with diapers, real practical needs.
Well, and now many of them have ultrasounds.
Yeah,
and so
ultrasounds.
I think, when a woman has the opportunity to see that truly they have this unborn life in them, that is powerful for a lot of women. And so I think just even having that more readily available so that when a woman is trying to make a decision, she at least has all the information that she needs to know what's going on.
Okay. So when we talk about not retreating, let's look up close at the battle in Virginia. Bring us up to speed on that.
Well, again, I mean, we've talked some positive news. When we talk about Virginia, I can't be quite as rosy glasses as I am around the rest of the state. But the bottom line is that they want Virginia to be the abortion capital of the South. We are basically the last state in the South that allows abortion as late as we do. And that is devastating. We have just not done our job since Dobbs like these other states have in restricting abortion. And so,
I mean, that is amazing that we're kind of the last holdout in the South.
Right, and it tells you how well this has gone. In states that were inclined to do this, the court was the only thing holding them back. And now the Roe decision is done. The people have made a decision in the Southeast.
Yes.
We don't want abortion. I think that's really significant. So, of course, Democrat leadership is working on this goal where they really want to have they want to make sure that there is an unfettered right to abortion in our Constitution. And they've made that in Virginia's Constitution because they want to sort of make sure this is the lockdown state where they can come and get their abortions and they can get them without any parameters. And so something like that would even devastate having parental consent around abortion.
So they've already proposed that. We are in that battle right now.
Yes.
Our state is already feeling the impact of them pushing toward those goals. I'm just going to put some graphics for you on the screen here. So let's take these one by one. You had shared these in an email a few days earlier. But let's just start with the one that talks about the 4 new abortion clinics.
Yeah, we're pretty devastated, and we knew this would happen. And actually, it began the moment we lifted safety standards in Virginia, but it was just sort of exacerbated when the South started actually protecting human life. So we have 4 new clinics. There's one in Bristol now, and we'll talk about our hard-fought effort on abortion in Bristol. We have one in Danville. We have 2 new ones in Richmond. And to me, obviously our office is here in Richmond. We think about Richmond a lot. That makes 6 abortion clinics in the Metro Richmond area.
In Richmond alone.
6 clinics.
Wow.
And the new ones, one of them is in a pretty economically not great area. And so you just feel like women who feel like they have no economic choice.
Yeah.
Right there, they've got an abortion clinic. And then the other one is awfully close to VCU. And that's Virginia Commonwealth University, where our college students go. And it's devastating to me that they barely have to move off campus to go get an abortion. And that one is doing gender stuff too. So when we talk about hormones and all of that, there's now a place that is right off the college campus to handle that.
What does
horrific.
So-called Planned Parenthood have to do with gender transition?
No. It has nothing to do with the issue. The tie is both make them a lot of money. That's the tie.
Yes,
That's
I
the
think
tie.
it is.
Both make them a lot of money.
All right, on to the other graphic, which says 550 more abortions per month. How are we getting that estimate?
Yeah, so we look at data that comes in. The state does still ask abortion providers to turn in the overall number of abortions. Do we know that is 100% accurate? I don't think, honestly, in the entire country, I'm not convinced that we have great abortion numbers. But it's pretty devastating that we're literally doing more abortions. You have 4 more clinics. This is what people don't realize is it's about the environment. What environment are you setting in your state? Are you telling women don't worry how reckless you are with your activity? Having a child, you always have a backup plan because abortion is right around the corner. It really is so much that we're just making abortion sound like it's just as it's just the easy
Yeah, it's like the Plan B Tylenol. That it does sound like that. Yeah,
correct. And so and what ends up happening is you have more reckless sexual behavior, you have more abortion. That's the whole plan on the left.
All right, and this is a disturbing one. I think we could be seeing as much as an 18% increase with out-of-state abortions coming into our state.
Yeah, so this is a number that comes out of Planned Parenthood, so we don't have it for every clinic, but this is the number they're reporting, that they used to see about 2% of out-of-state patients, and now they're saying that they are seeing about 20% of people being not from Virginia. So what's really sad about that is, again, this issue of we're not just taking the lives of our future residents here, we're contributing to the loss of population in North Carolina, Tennessee. These lives that are the next generation of these other states are coming here. No one wants Virginia to be a place for destination abortion. Other than the far left industry, I think people go, okay, even if they're pro-choice, they might want abortion available for a necessary whatever they think about abortion, but they don't. They're not thinking we want Virginia to become the place where everybody goes to have an abortion.
The state with the culture of death. We don't want to be that.
No.
Well, let's just get bottom line here. When you combine all of this together, what's happening at the federal level with them pushing laws that would enshrine abortion and almost replace Roe, except worse, with what's happening in our own state, help us understand the stakes in this election.
Well, I don't think there's any question. There's a realignment happening, and we haven't brought every heart and mind over to the life position. So that's why we see what we see. But it can't be said that this abortion, when people always say this is the most important election of our lifetime, and then it's kind of like, but every election. But really, when we think about this year, they want a federal unrestricted. They don't just want the Virginia Constitution changed. They really do want to block these southern states from being allowed to protect human life. And so they have things like a Women's Health Protection Act that is sitting in Congress to...
A very Orwellian title, Women's Health
Sorry,
Protection Act.
Yes, it is not about women's health protection.
Just had to point that
Sorry.
out.
Yes, I should clarify. This is an abortion. This is unrestricted abortion. So they've got that bill sitting there ready to go. They've talked about, constitutional changes. I don't think there's any question. This is part of the discussion is, when you look at these debates and, Republican strategists are trying to say, well, we don't really want a federal, they get nervous if anybody talks about being federally pro-life, right, in any way. But the left absolutely wants the federal government to shut down any flexibility of the state.
To control everything.
Exactly. And if they win this election, if they get Congress, they get a president, certainly if they get both, that's what they will do. And, you can't ignore the fact that we also do have one Supreme Court Justice, Clarence Thomas, who is 84 now. So a replacement of at least one justice is a potential. And he's one that is on the side of original constitutional readings and does not think, he was part of overturning Dobbs. We don't want to lose his perspective on the court. So the next president could have, it's possible they could have that.
Another huge impact on the court.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways that the next election has big impact. And then I can't understate the importance of the chemical abortion and the FDA. That's a federal body. What their regulations are and how that moves forward is impacted by the next president and who he puts in those regulatory roles.
Now, I have had, I've heard some people out there warning that this could be the last year that we celebrate Dobbs if we don't wake up here. Do you think that's an overstatement?
Well, overturning Roe put the abortion issue back to the people, whether that's at the federal level, the state level, it put it back to the people. If the people are represented by all pro-abortion liberals up at the federal level, then yes, it could mean that we have just made a national abortion rights, unrestricted abortion situation. So it is concerning. I don't like to use such drastic terms myself.
No, I don't either. Because people shouldn't be discouraged. We just gave a bunch of positive reasons why we need to keep up the battle and not shy away from this. But it is serious. And to that point, our churches do need to get involved.
Oh, I don't think there's any question that if our churches don't get involved, the pro-abortion side will win these elections. It requires the church to be good stewards of the gift that God has given us by being able to help select our government. That's a gift, and it's a stewardship issue that we go out and we make good decisions around what are the kinds of principles that will make our nation flourish, like protecting human life, and making sure that the people that we put in office understand those principles.
Well, again, all of this can feel really overwhelming, when we talk about all that's going on out there. So I thought I would kind of wrap up with a glimmer of hope here. And that is these stats we're seeing that when you survey, when you study what women are actually wanting when they go toward this abortion clinic door, I'm seeing studies that the majority of women who get abortions actually say that they would rather become a parent if they had the financial support, the emotional support that they felt that they feel they need and probably do need.
Yeah, I think it's something like, the numbers, depending on how you define it, can look a little different, but roughly 70%, that's a really significant amount of women who are saying, I feel forced into this decision in some way. I don't have what I need to make an alternate decision. And of course, Planned Parenthood's out there shouting, you can't do it any other way. So that doesn't help. But yeah, I think that is encouraging because I think it says if we can not just have the support, but actually market the support well enough to say it's there. I think somehow our support messages have to get louder than their abortion messages, which is super challenging. But I think it is really encouraging because I think women would make a different choice in many, many cases. And really, again, this is ultimately about hearts and minds. Laws follow votes. Votes follow how one believes. And so we need people to not want abortions.
Yeah, because the 70% specifically, that a lot of them are saying that they maybe were even coerced. So
because we always don't talk about this, but the role of the boyfriend, the role of the whoever is involved in that, they don't have to go through the same type of trauma the woman goes through. They do go through their own trauma, but it's easier for them to be like, look, this is easier for me not to deal with.
Yeah. So we really got to tackle that twofold lie. One, that there aren't other options. You don't have support. And two, that it's just like taking a Tylenol and it's just, it's as easy as, just popping the little pill, nothing to worry about. So tackle those two deceptions. And we're doing that both woman to woman and at the policy level. But just to come full circle on all this, can you just bring us to the bottom line? Why is it a mistake for conservatives to cower on this issue right now, on the pro-life stance?
Well, the easiest is because this is the right thing to do. And sometimes you have to move the populace in the direction of doing what is right. And there has to be leadership on that. And I know that at the end of the day, people want to be on the right side of history, so to speak. There will be a day where we will look back in shame as a nation and say, I can't believe we ever did this, the same way we do with slavery. I am convinced of that. And so we got to have people that have the bravery to say what is right, and we will bring you along. We will help you understand our perspective, but we can't pretend to go along with a majority just because there's a lot of people out there confused on this issue, really truly being fed lies and believing them.
All right, let's stay strong. Let's be the Abraham Lincolns in this debate. All right, let's talk about what people can do right now. So we've talked about, or we've mentioned pregnancy resource centers. So definitely support your local pregnancy resource center, step one.
Yeah, and I think important in that is not only do we have these 50 pregnancy centers out there, but we also have something called Her Plan in Virginia. And Her Plan is trying to, it literally makes a beautiful directory where if you have a woman in need, you can figure out where she can get housing, where she can get diapers, where she can get food help. It's a way that we're bringing services together around women. And I think there's more going on in that area in Virginia than ever before. And so if, some people know of the food pantry, let's connect the food pantry to we're really making strides here in Virginia for these women that find themselves in these situations. So you could be a part of any part of that network and help someone.
That encourages my heart. I think that's so key. But also, let's talk about what local cities can do, because as you said, we have new abortion clinics invading our cities.
Yeah, cities and counties have got to be heads up that they are able to say, we don't want this here. And we call those safe zones for life, literally passing zoning laws that say, look, it might be legal in Virginia, but our community does not think this complies with community standards. Or passing those ordinances, there are different ways you can do this, and we can help folks do that. But you don't have to have this in your locality. And obviously, they're popping up in Virginia. There are 4 new ones. Do we really want one to pop up in our own communities? So wherever you are, I think it's about time to have a conversation with your board of supervisors, your zoning. Sometimes they have planning commissions. It depends. Each county's a little different. Each city's a little different. But let's start making the move to do what we can. They talk about sweep the front of your own porch, and then we sort of clean the community. It's a little bit like, let's each sweep our own front porches, get our own communities to say we don't want abortion here,
analogy.
And then we can make a dent across the Commonwealth.
Okay, so if you want to check out an example of how we have helped a local community with Safe Zone for Life, just go to familyfoundation.org/Safe Zone for Life, and you can check that out. I think you'll be interested in that. But of course, I can't help but mention the Virginia March for Life. It looks like it's going to be on April 9th this year. So, hey, we're going to be in the springtime. Hopefully it will be warmer, nice sunny day where we can all come out. Now, I hear people asking, what difference does it make with you guys marching around the Capitol and holding signs? I'm going to let you respond to that.
Because if you're a politician, you could start to believe that everybody out there is pro-choice, and the commercials are all, and it really does impact your bravery, your willingness to stand for life. When we show up there with thousands of people, it gives courage to those that need to do the right thing, and it helps remind those that are sitting on the fence, wait, these are a lot of my constituents. It really is an important issue. We have to be a visible presence sometimes. We can't just sit in our homes and hope and wish they would do the right thing. We have to help them. We have to be in front of them.
Especially when they're all getting this pressure to back away from it. This year is going to be really
100%.
important. All right, well, I want to send us out on a positive note with a March for Life clip. But before we watch that, I just want to thank you guys. Thank you all for watching. Keep it up. Keep sharing this podcast so we get the word out and fight all the deception. Remember to share our Speak Up Virginia playlist. Remember, we are stronger when we speak together. And let's watch this clip from last year's Virginia March for Life. It will encourage your heart and help you start the day out well, or wherever you happen to be at in the day. It will just send you off encouraged.
I gotta tell you, I'm overcome because I'm looking at all of my fellow legislators here, and they all support life. They all support life. They're not afraid to stand and be counted. You don't know what it takes sometimes to listen to some of the things that we're hearing. And I'm just so glad I'm surrounded by these men and women.